Is that a jacket from Gucci?" Sophia exclaimed with delight as she looked at her colleague's new jacket. Her boss Maria smiled indulgently. "Of course. You know that my position obliges me to look good. Besides, lately, people often order wedding videos in registry offices, so I can't come to work in modest clothes." At this moment, Maria glanced coldly at the new cleaning lady. "Hey, you, what's your name?" "Lauren. Come over here." Lauren's old jeans, plaid shirt, and shabby shoes didn't look good against their expensive registry office hall. "Listen, you were hired to clean, not to waste time, you slacker." Maria spoke to Lauren very rudely. She didn't care about the girl's feelings at all. "By the way, Vincent was outraged you had polished the mirrors and chandeliers to a shine, and there were bright sequins where the musicians were standing. And because of that, Vincent couldn't concentrate and made a mistake in the second part of Mendelssohn's March. And that's the music that will stay in the newlyweds' memories for years." Of course, Lauren didn't dream of such a job when she was a child. She had completely different plans. But sometimes fate surprises us, and people are forced to find themselves in a place where they would never go willingly. Lauren graduated from high school with honors and planned to become a lawyer. Her exam scores were brilliant. Her Aunt Gloria promised her a good job at the registry office after graduation. But troubles come into our lives unexpectedly and dramatically changed everything around us. Lauren's mom got sick. Being sick is not the worst thing, but when people find out that they are sick, they get even more nervous. After returning from the hospital, her mom immediately started writing her will and suddenly started crying, not knowing who could take care of her cat. Lauren realized that her dearest person was horrified and didn't know what to do. Lauren had to mature very quickly. She was taking her mom to doctors, preparing her for surgery, reassuring her, and showing her mother examples of successful recoveries on the internet. Of course, her father would have coped with this better, but he didn't care about her mom's situation. He was away from home all the time. Lauren thought he was already cheating on her mom, but her father made excuses, saying he was on business trips or at the office, even at night. Lauren didn't have the strength and desire to talk to him about it. Even if dad is cheating, the main thing is that mom doesn't know anything. Her mom had enough trouble if she found out her husband was cheating on her. It would kill her. At home, Lauren was strong and strict. She could relax only next to her beloved Paul. They had a serious relationship. They studied at school together and planned to go to the capital together. The guy even proposed to Lauren. He gave her a ring, flowers, and beautiful words about their future together. Lauren accepted the ring but said that they could get married after graduation. The guy was upset but agreed with his beloved. But the problems changed everything. Paul went to the capital to enter the university alone, and after a while, he came to Lauren to explain that at the university he met his true love, and soon he would get married to another girl. But he said he still loved her as a friend, and that she could count on him, that he would come from anywhere in the world to help her. So, Lauren was left alone with no support and no money, with a sick mother and a father who had almost abandoned his family. Aunt Gloria helped her to get a job as a cleaner, and now the girl had to endure the mockery of her arrogant colleagues. Sighing, Lauren headed toward the small stage. During the wedding ceremonies, the orchestra was seated on it. It consisted of 3 musicians: the brilliant Vincent, a violin player with the ambitions of Paganini but the capabilities of a village entertainment center, the sad clarinet player Pierre, and the skinny harp player Sophia. The orchestra's musical repertoire was modest, but they played it at every wedding. If someone wanted to save money, not willing to pay untalented musicians, Maria raised an eyebrow and said in a threatening whisper, "Do you want to listen to dead silence at the wedding ceremony?" And embarrassed young couples or their parents immediately paid for the orchestra's services. Lauren didn't like wedding ceremonies. They reminded her of her failed wedding. But it was fun to watch the newlyweds. It was a real school of life. For example, this morning there were modest students with rowdy friends. Maria despised such weddings. She thought they had no future. But Lauren felt that the guy and the girl loved each other and believed that everything would be fine. After the students, an elderly Don Juan showed up at the registry office, holding the hand of a young beauty, covered with diamonds and gold. Obviously her future husband paid for it. In such cases, her boss Maria expected a good tip and was ready to do anything, even serve as a waiter. But it seemed to Lauren that there was no love in such a relationship. An old man is trying to prove to everyone that he is still young and can create a family, and the young girl patiently accepts his gifts, hoping for her husband to die soon. By the way, the bride's lovers are usually invited to such weddings. Lauren learned to recognize them by their cynical glances. After such weddings, Lauren wanted to take a shower as soon as possible. As if she was covered with dirt, a cleaner came to the place of the violin player on the small stage to remove the sequins that disturbed him. What kind of sequins could distract a musician from a Mendelssohn march? After each couple of newlyweds, Lauren had to quickly clean up all the trash in the hall so the next guests would enter a clean hall. Oh, so these little sequins under the curtain prevented the violinist from playing. Yeah, that violinist is really cranky. After cleaning up the hole, Lauren went to her room. On this hot summer day, young couples were entering the registry office non-stop. Lauren was relentlessly scrubbing the floor. The orchestra was trying to play faster and faster, and even Maria and her assistants looked tired by the evening. After seeing the last couple off to a happy married life, all the registry office staff quickly sat down and were silent for a while, coming to their senses. "I can't stand another day like this," Vincent groaned, rubbing the reddened fingers of his left hand. "Where did all these newlyweds come from?" Pierre said in a hoarse voice. He had been playing the clarinet all day, and now he could hardly speak. Sophia said nothing. She covered her head with her hands and froze as if she were in a coma. "Where is our cleaning lady?" Maria said tiredly. Her voice was weak, and her appearance indicated that she had no energy left to even fix her hair. Sophia and Maria looked at each other, and they didn't want to get up and go somewhere to call the cleaning lady. But their prayers were answered, and Lauren herself came into the hall, bringing a bucket and a mop. But she did it very slowly. Struggling to work, she felt as if she were crawling up a high mountain. "Can you work even more slowly?" The boss rebuked Lauren, rising from her chair. The rest of the registry office staff got up from their chairs right after Maria and went home. Everyone except the cleaning lady could finally go home and relax. Lauren had to do a thorough cleaning, wipe the white covers on the chairs, and polish the tables. It was already getting dark outside when Lauren was about to take out the trash that had accumulated during the day. She didn't have time for that during the day. Finally, she almost finished cleaning up. She only had to empty a couple of trash cans by the stairs, and then she could go home. But the trash can slipped out of her hands, and the contents fell onto the polished parquet. The girl cursed loudly and began to put everything into the trash bag with her hands. Suddenly Lauren found something solid and round in the garbage. It was a wedding ring. Very beautiful, expensive wedding ring. 2 gold threads framed the ring, and several small red rubies glittered between them. Even now, in the semi-darkness, when their only chandelier illuminated the hall, the gems caught the rays of light and refracted them into a deep scarlet color. Who could throw away this treasure right after the marriage ceremony? Her vivid imagination immediately depicted the image of an abandoned bride, whose fiancé deceived her and decided to marry someone else. She sneaked into the registry office trying to get her beloved back, but realizing that she could not change anything, she threw the wedding ring in the trash and then decided to commit suicide by jumping into the water from a high bridge. However, that can't be true, because there are no high bridges in their town. And the girl would probably throw the ring at the cheating fiancé, not into a trash can. Moreover, Lauren would definitely have found out about such a scandal at the registry office. So it was something different. The next day, the cleaning lady, coming to work, went straight to her aunt's office. Gloria listened to her and looked at the ring. but showed no interest in it. Put it away in the closet for a couple of weeks, in case someone comes to the registry office looking for it. Aunt Gloria said, if no one shows up during that time, then do what you want with it. Fortunately, the pawn shops are now open 24 hours a day, and you can sell it and earn some money. After all, anything that ends up in the trash can is considered a cleaning lady's trophy. No, Lauren was honest, so she couldn't take that ring. Even though she needed the money, there were not too many wedding ceremonies today, and Lauren had plenty of free time. She tried to remember all the couples from yesterday, but except for the very first couple, no one came to mind. Apparently, she was too tired and couldn't remember anything. But neither in 2 weeks nor in a month, nobody came to the registry office for the ring. The mystery tormented Lauren and demanded to find an answer to the question. Why did someone throw away the ring? Sometimes the cleaning lady would take the ring out of her pocket and look at it, hoping that the ring would help solve the mystery. You know, darling, her mom once said looking at the beautiful ring, I don't think someone bought that ring at the store. Look, it's got some kind of inscription on it. Probably custom made by a jeweler. Exactly, the girl exclaimed. The jeweler must have had the client's contacts. But at the same time, joy was replaced by doubt. Or what if the jeweler made several such rings? But her mom was sure it was unlikely that all customers would go to the registry office on the same day and with the same rings. It is necessary to take the list of newlyweds in the registry office on the day when Lauren found the ring, compare it with the name of the customer at the jeweler, and find out who got rid of this ring. Her mom had the phone number of a jewelry studio. They probably know who could have done such an inscription on the ring. The position of a cleaning lady is actually great. It allows you to enter any room, under the pretext of taking out the trash or wiping the dust. So Lauren quickly found the necessary data on the newlyweds for that day. On her nearest day off, the girl went to talk to the jeweler. The place that 20 years ago had been a simple workshop in a small room had turned into a luxury jewelry studio. There was a receptionist at the counter on the first floor, an elegant girl with blonde hair and bright makeup. When she saw the poorly dressed girl, she sighed disappointedly and faked a smile on her face. When she learned that the girl wanted to see a jeweler, she objected, saying that she took all the orders personally, and the jeweler only came out to the customers if there were any problems with the jewelry. When Lauren pulled the ring out of her pocket, the receptionist perked up and thought Lauren was actually a wealthy girl. Her attitude immediately changed, and her voice became polite. Of course, the receptionist immediately called James, the jeweler. Lauren was surprised. The ring was made in this jewelry studio by this jeweler. The receptionist felt offended. She was sure that only she communicated with all the clients. But the jeweler explained to her that there were VIP clients who worked directly with him. This ring had been ordered by the son of a wealthy, powerful man. It was designed for a young fiancé who was going to marry him. By the way, how did this ring come to you, Lauren? James asked in surprise. Lauren decided to hide the fact that she found the ring in a trash can. It would be unpleasant for the jeweler to hear that someone threw his masterpiece in the trash. So she said that she found the ring on the street and would like to give it back to the owner. Perhaps the jeweler could help to find contacts of the girl who threw the ring away in the registry office. But the problem was that James communicated directly with the rich client, and he only invited the girl once to try on the ring. Since the ring was made on time, and the girl tried on the ring and said that the size was okay, he didn't need the client's phone number. Luckily, the jeweler was drawing a sketch of the ring on paper, and maybe he could find the girl's number in one of his notebooks. James went to the workshop to look for the girl's number, and the receptionist commented that the world still had decent people, because the ring was very expensive, and no one would blame Lauren if she kept it or sold it. But still, she was trying to find the girl who had lost the jewelry. Half an hour later, the happy jeweler came out of the workshop, holding a crumpled piece of paper with Alicia's phone number written on it. Lauren took that piece of paper and went to the registry office to find the owner of the ring. There were 2 brides with that name at the registry office that day. Lauren decided to talk to both girls but how to invite them to the meeting. She had to act cleverly. Otherwise, the mystery would remain unsolved. Lauren called both numbers and introduced herself as a journalist who was writing an article about the details of wedding ceremonies in the registry offices. She asked for a short interview at a convenient time and place for the girls. Autumn was very beautiful this year. The days were still sunny, but everything around was already covered in vibrant foliage. Lauren sat in the cafe, warming her hands holding a hot paper cup with coffee, and thinking about what these two unusual meetings with the girls would be like. The answer to the mystery was very close. The first bride was already tapping her heels on the sidewalk, avoiding the wet fallen leaves, and the scent of her expensive perfume was flying in front of her. The first Alicia entered a cafe, elegantly sat down on the edge of a chair, called the waiter, and they immediately brought her a cup of hot coffee and a chocolate croissant. Lauren was fascinated by such elegant ladies, used to luxury. After a few minutes of conversation, Lauren knew for sure that this young woman would never throw away an expensive ring. She would rather sell it. So Lauren simply asked her a few questions and pretended to write down detailed answers. That was the end of their meeting. The second Alicia was very different than the first bride. She was a brunette with short hair, an attentive gaze, and stubborn lips. She walked quickly to the table, looked at Lauren, and told her that she didn't look like a journalist at all. So she demanded to explain the reason for their meeting. Lauren silently took the ring out of her pocket and placed it on the table. When Alicia saw the jewelry, she relaxed, sat down at the table, and took the ring in her hands. "What do you want to know?" Alicia immediately asked. "That's a very expensive ring. Why did you throw it in the trash?" Lauren asked. "For some reason." Alicia trustingly looked at the girl in cheap clothes, who was waiting for answers, and decided to be honest with her. Sighing, she told her that she lost her parents when she was a child. She was raised by her relatives, her uncle and aunt, but she always wanted to be adopted by someone. And instead of a rich mansion, she would prefer a cozy little house. Her uncle was very stingy, and her aunt also liked a wealthy, comfortable life. But the girl didn't like the fact that they loved money more than people, and were willing to do anything for money. The house had a huge library, even though her uncle and aunt didn't read books. So Alicia had the opportunity to read books, including real works of art. No one supported her hobby, but they didn't forbid her to read. The older the girl became, the more Alicia and her relatives distanced themselves from each other. To get rid of the awkwardness and tension in the relationship, her aunt decided that Alicia should get married as soon as possible. Besides, there was a family living in her parents' apartment. They paid good money for rent. If the niece decided to live in her parents' apartment, then the cash flow from the rent would stop. The girl didn't mind finally getting out of this depressing house. She didn't want to quarrel with her uncle because of their apartment, but it was hard to live with them in the same house. She was not allowed to enter the university, so marriage seemed to Alicia a way out of this situation. Her aunt found a decent groom for Alicia and began to prepare for the wedding. Alicia's future husband promised to pay for everything. That's when the guy revealed how stingy he really was, because he wrote down every cent in a notebook. At first, Alicia liked that Max was telling her about all their expenses. She thought he trusted her. After all, she was his future wife. But he was actually just showing how much Alicia cost. He was showing that he was buying her. And this ring completely disappointed her. "This ring costs as much as a small factory. And instead of buying a factory, I'm giving this ring to you," Max told her then. "Look at the risk I'm taking. What if you turn out to be not as useful as the factory?" Max finished his speech then. Not a wife, but an investment in the future, the girl thought then. Alicia and Max spoke different languages. Max spoke the language of numbers and money, while Alicia spoke the language of feelings. They didn't want to listen to each other's opinions, so she secretly decided to start a war with him. The first step was to get rid of the little factory in the form of this ring. Such a protest was a necessary step because she had been sold as a slave with no choice. The second step was to spend a lot of money on books. That's what she was doing now. But why did you decide to part with this masterpiece? Lauren asked. Alicia replied that she actually liked the ring itself. Under other circumstances, she would never have done this. But now she needed to act decisively. What about Max? Lauren asked more and more frank questions. Did he turn out to be a bad husband? The owner of the ring thought for a moment. Maybe it was a good thing that she had met a girl on her challenging path who could see deeper and ask the unexpected questions Alicia had always been afraid to ask herself. You know, she finally replied, when I got married, I thought I would fall in love with this man over time. He's handsome, strong, and great in bed. I wouldn't look for another man, but his greed and contempt for poverty overrides all his merits. Just before the wedding, one of his friends told me that Max was deliberately looking for a simple, shy girl without a university degree, so that she would always stay at home, have no friends, would not find a job, and would be completely dependent on her husband and obey him while he cheated on her with other women. They hinted that he already had a mistress, so his positive qualities are destroyed by the negative ones. When he found out I'd lost the ring, he went crazy. He screamed like a madman, saying I'd bankrupted him. I wanted to leave him after that, but I couldn't. I didn't have any money, and my aunt and uncle wouldn't let me back into their house. Lauren felt sympathy and trust for Alicia, and confessed that her life was also full of problems. Every wedding ceremony at work was very painful for her. She saw happy couples, while she herself was alone. She said that the registry office employees constantly reproached and mocked her, and that her father cheated on her sick mother. So, the girls became friends. Since that day they began to meet more often, and spend time together. Lauren sometimes came to Alicia's luxurious house, but she never met Max. He worked a lot, traveled on business trips, and was rarely home. Lauren was glad for the opportunity to discuss books with her new friend. While Max was away on business trips, they went to bookstores and thrift stores together, ordering tons of books. Soon Alicia made a small library in one of the rooms of their house secretly from Max. He had no time to inspect his mansion. He came home, slept, and went on another business trip, so he didn't find the library right away. That day the friends were at the theater. Then they went to a cafe and discussed the play. And when they said goodbye to each other, it was already night. But when Lauren got home, the phone rang. It was Alicia. She cried and begged for help. She had nowhere else to go, and she couldn't stay with this horrible man. Half an hour later, Alicia was already sitting in Lauren's small kitchen, crying. Lauren's mom, Tiffany, made herbal tea to calm the girl down. Gradually Alicia told through her tears what had happened at home. Max arrived from his business trip earlier than he had planned, and that same evening a courier delivered a parcel of books. His wife was at the theater, so Max got the parcel and immediately opened it. He hoped it was some dress, underwear, or jewelry. He thought Alicia wanted to please him at night, but it was stupid books. There was a bill in the box, and the angry husband was shocked at the price. He got really mad. A bottle of expensive cognac accompanied him on a tour of his own house. He quickly discovered a small library. There Max waited for his unwanted wife to explain to her what she could spend his money on. It was a huge scandal. However, only drunken Max shouted. Alicia just stood and listened. She learned many unpleasant and disgusting things about herself. It was not the first time she had heard it all. But when he started throwing books on the floor, pouring cognac on them, and threatening to burn them together with his unfaithful wife, she ran out of the house and never wanted to return there again. The morning sunlight illuminated the tired faces of the sleeping young women. The sun had almost dried the traces of tears, but suddenly there was a heavy knock on the door. Both girls jumped up fearfully from their beds. The mother's footsteps sounded in the hallway. She approached the door but didn't open it. Tiffany's husband was not at home, so the woman was in no hurry to face the danger. "Who's there?" Tiffany asked nervously. Alicia immediately recognized Max's voice. He demanded his wife back. Alicia was frightened and covered herself with a blanket. Lauren was also trembling with fear, but she pulled herself together and started blocking the door with the furniture she could move. Meanwhile, Tiffany courageously protected herself and the girls. She immediately told the man that there were no strangers there and she was not going to open the door to furious criminals. But this time it wasn't Max who answered. It was the policeman. He explained that there was a tracker installed in the phone of the victim's wife, which can track movement with an accuracy of up to a meter. So, if Alicia is not in the apartment, it means that Tiffany is hiding the stolen phone. In any case, it is better to open the door and calmly talk to Mr. Smith. Mr. Who? Lauren heard excitement and concern in her mom's voice. Mr. Who? Her father's voice sounded from the stairwell. He was returning home from work. Hearing her husband's voice, Tiffany opened the door. The small hallway immediately became crowded. There were a lot of people there. Max was a big, strong guy, and both the policeman and Lauren's father looked like weak boys next to him. Max wanted to go straight into the room to take revenge on his runaway wife, but the policeman and Tim forced him to sit down at the kitchen table. He told them that he came to get his wife, whom these people were hiding from him in this apartment. And if they don't give her back, he's going to sue everyone for such behavior. After all, he's Smith. This is a last name no one ignores in this city. And Max's father can guarantee trouble for all of them if they don't give Alicia to him right now. At that moment, Lauren walked into the kitchen. She couldn't listen to their accusations against her friend anymore. Why don't you tell us why your young wife ran away from you? I'll tell you why. You threatened to burn her along with the books. So it's not clear who's the victim and who's the culprit. The policeman glanced at Max with a very unkind look, and he shuddered. At that moment, another guest showed up on the threshold of the small apartment. A man with noble gray hair wearing an expensive overcoat was watching what was going on there. He shook hands with the policeman as if they were old friends and said that it was a family matter and he promised to handle it himself. The policeman said goodbye and left, leaving a confused Lauren and her parents without any support or protection. The guest sat down and asked what was going on. Max began to complain like a child, stammering, saying that he had been deceived and offended in front of everyone. His wife turned out to be dishonest. She wasted his money buying various unnecessary things, bankrupting him. And yesterday he decided to have a frank talk with her. But she ran away, taking with her some expensive things he had bought for her. The elderly man raised an eyebrow. Max felt embarrassed and didn't finish the sentence. Who are you? Tim asked the stranger bluntly. He saw that his wife was on the verge of fainting, so he decided to interfere in the conversation. The stranger stood up and said, I'm Michael, the father of this guy. May I ask who we are visiting? Instead of the father, Lauren's mother answered, Tiffany Donovan. Her mom suddenly introduced herself with her maiden name. And this is my husband Tim and daughter Lauren. She couldn't say anything else and quietly sat down in her chair. And Michael remained standing, shifting his gaze from Tiffany to Lauren and back again. His son pulled him out of this state of confusion by demanding to give Alicia back to him. His father looked at him sternly and told him to get out of there. Michael apologized to the apartment owners for Max's behavior and suggested that they meet later and talk. When Smith left, Alicia came out of her hiding place. She couldn't believe her happiness. Lauren offered to make lunch, but her parents didn't hear her. They looked at each other glumly. Why don't you tell me what's wrong? Lauren couldn't stand it. The problem is, it wasn't just this rude guy's father. It was your father too. Tim replied. Slamming the door, he walked out of the apartment, taking cigarettes. Mom ran after him, and Lauren was left in shock in the middle of the room. Then, when everyone had calmed down, Tiffany explained that when she was young she had dated Michael, who was a poor but very smart guy. They loved each other. He was always telling her about his plans for the future. Michael dreamed of getting a grant and entering a prestigious university. But his plans didn't have time to come true, as wealthy people with a shady reputation got in his way. They convinced the young man that it was time to earn money quickly and become an independent man. But to do this he had to go to the capital. Before leaving, the guy wanted to marry Tiffany to know that his family would be waiting for him in his hometown. They even applied to the registry office together. But they never got married because of Tiffany's relatives, who believed that Michael was engaged in illegal activities. So he was not suitable for a girl from a professor's family. But they couldn't tell this directly to Tiffany, so her relatives tried to ruin his reputation in their girl's eyes. They even found a photo where Michael was surrounded by very suspicious people. Their efforts were not in vain. Tiffany was hurt by the photo. She wrote him a letter and said that she refused to become the wife of a criminal. When Tiffany found out she was pregnant, she regretted sending that letter. She hoped that she could talk to him when he returned from the capital. But Michael never returned to their city. The girl urgently needed to decide what to do about the pregnancy. That's when Tim appeared in her life. He knew that Tiffany was expecting someone else's baby, but he accepted the responsibility. Lauren could not believe the story with the millionaire father, but soon Michael invited all of them to a meeting, where he confirmed everything her mother had said. Alicia and Max were also there. Michael explained to his son that the books that his wife so carefully collected are valuable, and in the age of IT technology, they become a very good investment for the future. Max realized his mistake, apologized for his behavior, and now helped his wife with books, learned to understand them, and even planned to open a small bookstore for Alicia. Michael immediately began to treat Lauren as a daughter and provided her with a good amount of money, which she wanted to spend on her mother's treatment. But Tim intervened. As it turned out, all this time he didn't go to his mistress, but earned money, working day and night, and finally saved the necessary amount of money for Tiffany's treatment. Everyone agreed with his decision but still helped pay the bills, so Tiffany slowly began to recover. Lauren and Alicia were still friends, but they didn't have much time to hang out. Alicia was preparing the store for opening, and Lauren finally entered law school. The day of the bookstore opening came. The store looked flawless. Experienced designers had worked for weeks to make it look like an old castle, and the storefront looked no worse than a museum. In the morning, antiquarian connoisseurs crowded at the entrance. Everyone wanted to see the book treasures of the Smith family. It turned out that there were a lot of book lovers in the city. The red ribbon was patiently waiting for the scissors of the young owner of the store, but for some reason, Alicia hesitated. After waiting for silence, Alicia pulled out a small gold ring with 2 twisted strings and small rubies. Max froze. Alicia held out the ring to him and said, "Max, I agree to be your wife." All the guests looked at each other in confusion. They were already married, and only a few people realized this was Alicia's vow of fidelity to her husband. The secret wars were over forever, and a long and happy life was ahead. Max smiled, took the ring, and put it on his wife's finger, accepting her vow. Then he picked her up with his strong arms and began to twirl her around, declaring his sincere love. But suddenly he stopped. Tears glistened in his eyes, and his lips spread in a happy smile. Max carefully put his wife on the ground as the main treasure of his life. Lauren realized that her best friend had finally told her husband that she was expecting a baby.